Transfers have played a vital role to Oregon Duck success ever since Dan Lanning has stepped onto campus, and I've talked about this in a previous edition of TSOW, the transfer strategy that Dan and his coaching staff really employs. They don't take a ton of transfers. They haven't taken a ton of transfers really in any of the classes that they've brought in, but they bring in guys that can make a significant impact, that can come onto this team, fill a roster spot, and potentially be all conference or maybe even all American type of players. And like this transfer class for the 2025 version of the green and yellow has me very excited. And I was kind of like going through topics and ideas that I wanted to talk about in this show. And I'm like, I haven't really talked about my most important transfers, my top 5 transfers, or anything like that. So I thought, what a perfect opportunity to do so. Now, before I get to my top 5 of the most important transfers for this Duck team this year, we got to talk about some honorable mentions. I want to talk about guys at 2 positions where there's a lot of youth and there's a lot of depth. That's wide receiver and corner. Theron Johnson, who's an all Big Ten corner coming over from Northwestern. Malik Benson has played college football at Alabama and Florida State, the former number 1 junior college player in the country. Now, when I look at both of these guys being veteran pieces in very crowded rooms, there is a scenario, like you throw out Malik Benson, first of all, like he's in the battle to be wide receiver 3 on this team. Absolutely no doubt about that, but he could be wide receiver 3. He could also be wide receiver 6 with guys like Jeremiah McClellan in this room and Jurian Dickey and Kyler Casper and Gary Bryant Jr. and Justice Lowe and a lot of these other names that have been thrown around to be that third wide receiver behind Evan Stewart and behind DeCorian Moore as well. So he's certainly not as high on my most important transfers list just because there's so many other guys in the room. You look at Theron Johnson on my projected depth chart. I had Theron Johnson as a potential starter with Jaleel Florence at that other corner opposite of Ifeatu Obadegwu, but there's a world where we live in where he's clearly a second team performer. There could be, who knows? A lot of things can certainly change, and we know the ebbs and flows certainly of talent development. Like there's a world where Theron could maybe even be a third team guy or maybe work into that nickel slot. Like there's certainly a lot of moving pieces for some of the corners on this Oregon team this year. And I think because of the depth in that room, I maybe don't have Theron Johnson on my top 5. I think Theron might be one of the best man-to-man cover guys on this team. I think he's going to be a third team guy? No, but there is a possibility with all of the competition certainly in that room right now. Jamari Johnson is one that I think is flying under the radar for a lot of people. And I think he's probably, if I'm ranking like 1 through 10, for example, he's probably like number 6. He's just outside of that top 5, certainly for me. Because there isn't a ton of depth at the tight end position. Once you get beyond Kenyon Sadiq, right, it certainly starts to fall off. You've got Roger Salapaga coming back off of an injury. You've got Vander Plug in that tight end room as well. Like there isn't a ton of experience. There isn't a ton of guys where you can trust them to kind of go into a situation as a tight end 2 or a second guy and trust them to be able to make plays and be a part of this offense and execute what you ask them to do, like you could out of Patrick Herbert the last couple of years. And Kenyon Sadiq was also kind of in that number 2 and number 3 role the last couple of seasons certainly as well. And like when you look at Jamari's a little bit of a younger player. He was recruited by Oregon. Did he redshirt and play a year at Louisville? I know he definitely played 1 season with the Cardinals last season, but we've talked about ad nauseum how, Kenyon's going to be in the slot. Kenyon's going to be working out wide. I think if they want to stay in 11 personnel in those types of situations, Jamari Johnson is going to get a lot more play than I think a lot of people realize. Okay, he's certainly one of my players that's really flying under the radar right now. I think you could see a lot more of Jamari Johnson than maybe some people are certainly leading on right now. Alex Harkey, I think he's slated to be the starting right tackle on this team. He was a third-team all Sun Belt performer coming out from Texas State. He's certainly a plug-or-play, but I don't know if he has as high a ceilings as some of the other offensive linemen that we're going to get to, certainly in that top 5. How about we get to that top 5 and we start in the trenches, but on the defensive line, defensive tackle Bear Alexander, transferring over from USC, also has played at Georgia throughout his career. Now, Oregon's defensive line ceiling is at its highest if Bear Alexander is also playing at his highest right now. I talked about it in the last show, how confident, a hill I was willing to die on, is that this is going to be one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten and maybe one of the best defensive lines in college football. I think a big reason for that, for my confidence, is I believe in Tosh Lupoi. I believe in Tony Tuioti. I believe that they can get the most out of Bear Alexander. Like, there is talent and there is size on the defensive line, but I think what Bear has that maybe some of these other guys that are going to be in the competition to get more snaps and more reps on the defensive line is he has experience. Like, he's going to be a junior coming in this season. You've got a redshirt freshman in Aiden Breland. You've got a redshirt freshman in Tion Gray. I think Terrence Green is a redshirt sophomore. I think he's going to be a little bit higher maybe in the rotation than some of those aforementioned guys. But I think where the coaches want to fit in with Bear, and I think how they, in a perfect world, we know the world isn't perfect, but I think in a perfect world, how they want this thing to really shake out, they want Bear to be able to reach that ceiling, be a part of one of the best defensive lines in college football, and then maybe move on to the National Football League, a one-year bridge that gets to Aiden Breland, that gets to Tion Gray, because if you throw in maybe a redshirt freshman into that group, maybe they won't be as ready to play right away. Like Bear Alexander, he's shown really good tape at USC. A couple of years ago, he was pushing some people around, and I think he came in and he was able to really get on the field a lot in that first season at Georgia when they won the national championship as well. But I think because of maybe the depth in that room and because of the other pieces, he's maybe not as high on this list, but I love Bear. With Amari, with Mateo on the defensive line, I'm going to keep on shouting it from the mountaintops this offseason how much I love this defensive line. Let's head over to the offensive line, but stay with the transfer that's coming over from Southern California. That being Emanuel Prinon, the left guard in there as well. Prinon and Pancho, it gives me so much confidence about what the interior run game could be this season. 6'5", 320 pounds. Alik Terry said this spring when talking about the transfer offensive linemen they've just got huge size. These are mammoth of men of offensive linemen in there, and Prinon is certainly no exception. Like, I think the middle of that line is going to be outstanding. I think the left side of this line is going to be outstanding. And when you combine the depth in the running back room, you got to imagine that there's certainly a possibility that Oregon could bully some teams around. Certainly, he was widely considered to be USC's best offensive lineman certainly last season. And having a guy like Prinon and having some veteran offensive linemen is only going to help the development and the confidence of one Dante Moore. Now, I talked about the ability to be bullies up front, play some Big Ten football, and maybe smash and really power that run game. Who's going to be the guy that's going to be leading that run game? Well, he's my number 3 transfer on this list. It's Tulane transfer running back Mai Hughes. Man, over 2,700 yards in 2 seasons with the Green Wave, 22 touchdowns. He is a straight ahead runner. Now, when it was announced that Hughes was indeed transferring into Oregon, one of the top transfer running backs available in the portal at the time, and then overall, now that both portal cycles have finished, I kind of had to look up what exactly his MO was. I saw the stats, I saw the box score. He's a straight ahead runner. And this is a guy that you needed a plug-and-play option with Jordan James departing. Now, with all due respect to guys like Noah Whittington and Dink Riggs, I don't think those guys were going to be able to plug into an RB1 situation. Those guys weren't going to be able to carry the load and have a consistently large amount of carries and have Oregon's run game get to the ceiling that I think it needed to get to. Like I've said it multiple times before, I think Noah Whittington is a great 1B back. I think you're going to see more flashes of Dink Riggs in this run game, but you needed somebody to be able to lean on, and that guy certainly is Mai Hughes. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to rush for the 1,400 yards or 1,300 yards that he did at Tulane, because this is a more balanced attack. Okay, Dante Moore, Evan Stewart, anybody? Kenyon Sadiq, anybody? DeCorian Moore? Right, we know that this team is going to throw the football around, and they've been balanced during their time with Dan Lanning, of course, Kenny Dillingham, and now 2 years of Will Stein. And they've also got a lot of depth in the backfield. I think Mai Hughes is going to be fresh, but I think if Oregon really wants to be able to make a run this season, the performance of Mai Hughes and being that guy that they can consistently lean on when they need yards and they need to be able to pound the rock, I think is very, very important. Let's head over to number 2. Now, these last two are very important positions. Safety, Dylan Theamman, transferring over from the Purdue Boilermakers. Theamman creates the best feeling, I think, at the safety position since Javon Holland. You look at a 2-time all Big Ten guy, he can do everything. He can play, he can come up and make sure tackles in the run game. He can play the deep third. He's got great anticipation. But here's the thing. He can do everything. He won't need to do everything. I think we're going to see the best version of Dylan Theamman in this defense because this staff is really going to focus in on what he does well. And I've talked about this before on TSOW, that he's been around the block a couple of seasons. At this point, he's a veteran. You've got a young secondary in there as well. I think he's going to be very much a lead by example type of guy. And, you know, everybody's talked about in all the press conferences that I was listening to this spring. He sets that example of being the first one in, of being the last one out. Like, for a guy to be able to come in there and be that type of leader right away, I think is very impressive. And I think a lot of the young guys are going to benefit from having Dylan Theamman certainly in this room. Now, here's like the need portion of this and why he is so high. Like, you take his talent, you take in what he's accomplished, and then you combine it with how Oregon has kind of bowed out of their respective college football seasons the last 2 years, and you can understand why Dylan and his performance this season is as important as I believe it should be. You look at a couple of years ago, I know people don't want to remember it, but the Pac-12 championship game against Washington, both those games against Michael Penix and the Huskies, they couldn't really do much against the pass. Rose Bowl, once again, another game that people don't want to go back to, people don't want to remember, but we got to talk about it in this case. Like, Kobe Savage and some of the safeties, they got turned around. Now, whether that was not being prepared or not being talented enough, or Ohio State just being freakazoids on the outside, or a combination of all three. Plain and simple, Oregon needs to be better at that position. And Oregon has been getting better in the secondary. But Theamman has taken this thing, I think, to another level. We talk about steps on the ladder. We've talked about that with multiple instances when discussing this team. I think where Theamman is, I think he's multiple steps up on the ladder compared to where Oregon has been at that safety position. They need him to be a reliable presence. They need him to be a veteran presence. When you get to some of these games in the postseason, you can't get torn apart. You need somebody back there that won't get beat over the top. I believe that's Dylan Theamman. He's extremely important to the success of this Duck team and this Duck defense. Which leads me to the number 1 most important transfer, and it might be the most important position on the football field. That is left tackle. That is Isaiah World. Man, there are people out there that are saying Isaiah could be a top 10 pick. Isaiah could be a top 15 pick. How about 6'8", 312 pounds? He's got the long arms. He's got the long punch. He's got everything that an NFL general manager could want from a top pass protector. if it is the case that he is indeed a top 10, top 15, let's just say a first round pick, if that is indeed the case, this is yet again another Joe Moore Award finalist. I mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. The left side of this offensive line with Poncho in the middle at center and Prinon and World on that left side. They're going to mash in the run game. Prinon is also a pretty good pass blocker as well. That's going to really open up this pass game. And when you have a young quarterback in Dante Moore out there, now we know he's been around. He's been out of high school certainly for a few years at this point, but this is his first real action of being the guy. And we kind of rewind back to his time at UCLA. Now, there was a lot wrong with his time at UCLA, but what was one thing that often gets brought up is that offensive line was not good. It was in the triple digits in terms of pass protection in college football. And Dante having that much pressure on him may have kind of resulted in what we saw a couple of years ago at UCLA. So if Isaiah World can lead that protection on the blind side and keep Dante Moore in the pocket so he can go through his progressions a lot more, a lot sooner, and all throughout the season, this offense is going to reach its ceiling. This offense is going to reach its potential. Oregon has had a lot of confidence the past couple of years with Josh Connerly. Okay, Josh Connerly was drafted at the bottom of the first round. If World is in that category, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Like, that position is so important in the run game, in the pass game, to providing more time to maybe letting some of these deep routes with the speed of Eastu, with the deep ability of Decoring Moore. Everybody wants to see the deep ball this year, but in order to see the deep ball, Dante Moore needs time to throw. And Dante Moore getting time might be looked on what Isaiah World is doing over there at left tackle. He is my most important transfer for this upcoming season. All these guys are going to play a vital role to the Ducks' success this season.